About 2 years ago, I made a video titled Pokemon Sword and Shield GBA review, where I hastily tried to review this charming demake romhack that brings the Galar region to the Game Boy Advance. In the end, I took it down as I realized the review wasn't fair and I really didn't know what I was rambling about. Ever since, this project has lived rent-free in the backrooms of my brain, popping up in my thoughts every now and then. This time, I let the voices win and gave the romhack a second look. So today, after replaying the game and actually reading through the documentation this time, I'll be reviewing Pokemon Sword and Shield GBA Ultimate Plus Pro Note 17 Max, since I don't want to turn into the Anton ego of fan-made Pokemon games. Let's do this! Pokemon Sword and Shield GBA is a Fire Red-based ROM hack that faithfully transposes the Galar region from the original Sword and Shield games into the Gen 3 engine. While Game Freak usually remakes older Pokemon games into newer engines and generations, the fanbase does the opposite. We demake newer Pokemon games into older generations. This somehow works way better than you'd think. This hack was originally created and released by Portuguese developer PCLG in 2020, then it was passed to A-Star Games, Gene Stars, and translated by Phantonomy, each contributing significantly to the game's development and evolution. Even though the game has been simplified by being ported into an older generation, it still has a surprising amount of features such as the battle engine from Pokemon Radical Red, which means Pokemon from generations 1 through 8, Mega Evolutions, Z-moves, Dynamaxing, and Generation 8 battle mechanic, the full storyline of Sword and Shield, the Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra, side quests, and post-game legendary hunts. The main story is the same as regular Sword and Shield, faithfully recreated. You still got the gym challenge, the rivals, Team Yell, the darkest day with Rose, and all that. The DLC areas are now post-game and to my knowledge have been adjusted to fit the level curve. In terms of difficulty, the game mostly stays faithful to the original Sword and Shield, which were some of the easiest mainline games ever made. I didn't find the demake to be much harder, however the trainer AI seemed to be smarter and more annoying as it likes spamming healing items and switching out often. Although the demake keeps the same level curve for the main campaign, it is better balanced here as the EXP share is nowhere near as broken, therefore it is harder to get overleveled. I also found that Pokemon in the wild area have level scaling, which is a nice touch that the originals didn't care to implement. One thing that irks me a lot about the originals is the world design. Yes, you have this semi-open wild area in the middle of the region, however the rest of the game looks like a platformer with a bit of depth. The demake translates that Uncanny Valley 3D environment into a 2D perspective akin to the older games, which works much better. The wild area in the demakes is quite different. They most likely arranged it this way due to the GBA hardware map size limits, plus the devs had to squeeze in a much larger variety of Pokemon and biomes to fit them in. The originals are known for fully embracing overworld Pokemon, which goes against the random wild encounters in past games. The demake managed to find the sweet spot with overworld Pokemon roaming around, as well as wild encounters in tall grass. Splendid! As for quality of life, you can access your PC boxes with a Rotom phone. You still get the free Corviknight Taxi, Name Changer, Move Relearner, all TMs can be bought, and there are also NPC vendors in the wild area that sell Pokeballs, evolution items, competitive supplements, and so on. The graphics, pixel art, and environment designs for this game are spot on. I love all these Pokemon roaming around and creating a nice ambiance. The cities are also well made and remain faithful to the original art style for the most part. The music is a different story. There are 2 remastered tracks, Postwick and Route 1, which sound decent, however the rest of the music is either from Fire Red or adapted from Diamond and Pearl. To most people, this isn't a big deal, but as a musician I do enjoy listening and paying attention to the soundtrack as I am playing, and in this case it can lead to some hilarious scenarios in which the music playing is very wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, even with the much needed updates and improvements the game got, no ROM hack is perfect. There are still a few spots where I'd love to see some extra polish in future updates. First, the Poke Center designs look very generic. I get it, most of them were carried over from Radical Red, but they don't match the Galar aesthetic at all. Motostoke's version actually looks pretty faithful, therefore the team should use that design for all the centers. Next, there are some map and layout issues. I know, my brain constantly whispers GBA map size restrictions. But Windon, this expansive, bustling capital of Galar, feels way too cramped and dumbed down. Splitting it into a few connected maps could help it breathe. Then there is the wild area. I get why it's split, but the rearrangement really throws me off. There should be a way to redesign the sections to be more faithful to the original. Then there is the Isle of Armor, which feels rushed and unfinished. I get the Corviknight fast travel system, but why is it like this? Am I walking through walls? Then there are the fake gates. Let's play a game. Where does this random train station go to? Wrong. It's a gate to Motostoke City. Which city does this gate lead to? Wrong. To another section of the wild area. Which route does this gate connect Windon to? Double wrong. On the outside it's a gate, on the inside it's a train station, and it leads to Rose Tower. Chat, is this Lavender Tower? Nope, Rose Tower. Oh, and what on earth is going on with the Isle of Armor fly map? It's the little details like this that really make a difference. Finally, the music. Only a couple tracks got proper remasters. More custom sword and shield arrangements would go a long way towards helping the original spirit alive. The good news is that with the Preg team's ongoing work on Gen 3 code disassembly, future updates will have even more room to breathe and polish these areas and small issues. Look, when I first tried to review the game 2 years ago, I completely missed the mark. Coming back after all the updates and actually reading through the documentation, I began to appreciate what this ROM hack stands for and started to grow a liking to it. Once again, I must admit that I hate Pokemon Sword and Shield. The original Galar games are incredibly mediocre as they are supposed to be AAA games from the most profitable franchise ever, yet they cut so many corners and made so many dumb decisions, triggered so many controversies. It's absurd. The plot absolutely sucks, the environment is a joke, the battles are too easy, unbalanced, and not fun, and the finished product feels like an empty, miserable husk of a game. The demake, however, took the original game and perhaps made it much more palatable, charming, and more balanced, and I am incredibly grateful for what it and the developers managed to achieve, even with its current flaws. So, do I finally recommend you go ahead and play this little demake ROM hack? Drumroll please! Yes, I think it's definitely worth giving this game a try now, even if you dislike the original games like I do. My final score will be a solid 9 out of 10. It's always inspiring to see what the Pokemon community can do with a few tools, some imagination, and a 20-year-old engine. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye!